The Detroit Lions set a franchise record in 2024 as they won 15 games and won the NFC North for the second consecutive year. They had a dominant regular season as they put up a franchise record 564 points and sprinted through most of the regular season. The playoffs for them and for the Vikings and Packers were a much different story as the Vikings went 14-3 in the regular season, much to the surprise of everyone, with two of their losses to the Detroit Lions and the other being to the Los Angeles Rams. Green Bay had one of the most quiet 11-win seasons of all time, due in large part to the success the Vikings and Lions had, but they made the playoffs nonetheless. Now, Chicago was a much different story, as after starting out 4-2, they lost in Washington on the Hail Mary, and the rest of their season spiraled from there. But heading into 2025, the future for this division is insanely bright, and there was a point in 2024 where every team in the NFC North was top 5 in the NFL in point difference, and this division is going to be a complete pain in the rear end to play. And in today's video, we're going to break down just how good the NFC North is, and how good they will be for the next few years. And if you could like the video before we start, I'd really appreciate it, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with the Green Bay Packers. Despite the Packers being a wildcard exit last year, they still won 11 games and finished top 8 in both offensive and defensive points per game. What was unfortunate for Green Bay is who they lost their 6 games to in 2024. They were 1-5 in the division as they were swept by both the Lions and Vikings and lost the Week 18 game against the Bears before losing in the wildcard round to the Philadelphia Eagles. Their only loss outside of the division was also to the Eagles in Week 1, which was the Friday Night Brazil game. And because the Packers were a team that lost in the wildcard round last year and ultimately finished third in their division despite winning 11 games, they did not receive a lot of media attention last year. But this team is going to be really solid again in 2025, and the common theme throughout today's video is that you can't dismiss any of these teams and pencil them in as an easy win. They are all too talented, and while I admittedly don't think the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl this year, or even go to the NFC Championship game for that matter, they are a very high floor team that I think will improve in some areas compared to last year. A big part of Jordan Love's game in 2023 was his ability to extend the play, and as simple as this is, take what was in front of him, both in the air and on the ground. And while you wouldn't confuse Jordan Love with Lamar Jackson, I am a firm believer that he was limited for a lot of 2024 based on the injury he suffered late in Week 1 against the Eagles. And obviously when you're limited, that's going to affect how you play. Inevitably it did, as Jordan Love had just 83 rushing yards for the entire 2024 season. But the offense this year is going to be a fun unit, as the Packers drafted a receiver in the first round for the first time since 2002, as they selected wide receiver Matthew Golden, who should immediately help out this passing attack that desperately needs it. Green Bay had a handful of receivers that were not bad, but certainly not guys that could take over the game either, and having Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, and tight end Tucker Kraft to throw the ball to will be very beneficial for not just Jordan Love, but for Josh Jacobs too. Jacobs, of course, had over 1,600 total yards and had 16 total touchdowns in his first year with Green Bay, and I fully expect him to be in the playoff hunt again in 2025. The one thing I really worry about with this team is, well, its division of course, but specifically their corners. The Packers recently released Jair Alexander, and for as good of a free agent signing as Xavier McKinney was at safety, he can't play everywhere, and having your top corners at this point be guys like Harrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, and Nate Hobbs in a division with guys like Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Moore, and really the list goes on, leads me to believe this is going to be a very limited team in 2025. They will have a high floor, of course, and again, I would be very surprised if they're not in playoff contention, but in January when it's time to go against the best of the best the NFL has to offer, even for as good as I think the Packers offense will be this year, I can't help but think their secondary is going to be a liability when it matters most, and in some ways their pass rush too. Green Bay not addressing the secondary until the 7th round of the draft was frustrating, but they are still a formidable opponent, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this team win 10 games this year. Now, if there is one feeling I wish I could recreate from my younger years, it would be the thrill and anticipation of opening a pack of football cards. And a couple of years ago, I actually went back and bought a pack of 2012 cards, hoping for one player in particular, one of my favorite players of all time, in safety Harrison Smith of the Minnesota Vikings. And by dumb luck, I opened the pack of cards, and there was a signed rookie Harrison Smith card waiting for me. And now with slab packs from arenaclub.com, I can recreate that feeling anytime. And what I really like about Arena Club is the transparency and the fact that they're the most trusted name in the game. With the transparency, you'll be able to see the hit rate of a specific card before you open a pack, so you know the chances of pulling that specific card before you even open the pack. And when you open a pack on Arena Club, they will make you an instant offer for your card based on its market value. There's no guessing, no waiting. You will get an instant offer for the estimated fair market value. I absolutely love opening football cards, and I actually pulled a rookie JJ McCarthy Gem Mint 10 while making this video, and right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/GFB. Once again, go to arenaclub.com/GFB and use code GFB for 20% off your first slab pack or purchase, and a big thank you to Arena Club for sponsoring today's video. Now, as crazy as this idea is going to sound, I think we're at a point where the Lions are legitimately underrated heading into 2025. I think the common belief is that because they won 15 games last year, and because Ben Johnson is now the head coach of the Bears, and that Aaron Glenn is the head coach of the Jets, and also given the fact that several of the position coaches from the 2024 Lions went either with Ben Johnson to the Bears or with Aaron Glenn to the Jets, and that former center Frank Ragnow retired, that the Lions are inevitably going to fall off. And while, yes, I do think they will quote-unquote fall off, let's just be real here, guys. I don't think they're going to win 15 games in 2025, and I don't think they would have won 15 games even if they still had Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Repeating 15-win seasons is incredibly difficult for anybody, but the Lions can still win 12 games and go to the NFC Championship game, or they can still go to the Super Bowl, because remember, they are still an extremely talented roster, and they are still set up for not just 2025, but for 2026 and beyond too. Now, is there going to be a little bit of a drop-off or a transition period from Ben Johnson to John Morton, the team's new offensive coordinator? Probably yes, but John Morton is not a stranger to this team. He was a senior offensive assistant back in 2022, and what also has to be remembered is, while I do think Ben Johnson is a very good offensive mind, it is very much fair to say that the Lions' offense is absolutely loaded, and it's very much like naming guys from a loaded 2001 Miami Hurricanes roster where you have Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Taylor Decker, and Penei Sewell. And a guy who I think is really underrated heading into the year is 2024 6th-round pick Christian Mahogany, and a player who I think will break out this year. The point is, whether the play caller is Ben Johnson or John Morton, they should still have a relatively high level of success because of how loaded the offense is. Now, I am not one to speculate on injuries heading into any season, but I do think it is fair to say that I don't think the 2025 Lions will be as injured defensively as much as they were last year. At least I sincerely hope not, and that getting players like Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, and not just those guys, but several other guys back is going to be critical for their success this year. And I do think Hutch was well on his way to winning a Defensive Player of the Year award last year, as he had 45 pressures in really 4.5 games, and he also had 7.5 sacks, and I do think that he would have been on pace for another 100 plus pressure season, as well as a 14, 15, maybe even 17 or 18.5 sack type year, and that he would have won the Defensive Player of the Year on a 15-win team. The biggest thing for the 2025 Lions offense that I have no doubt as to whether or not they're going to be able to do is consistently run the football. They finished top 10 in every major rushing category last year, which is of course rushing attempts, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and yards per carry, and I don't think that Frank Ragnow retiring is going to have them go from 9th in yards per carry as a team to something like 28th in yards per carry, because at the end of the day, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are still both very good at what they do. And one other thing that I don't think is discussed enough is how smart and how good of a coach Dan Campbell is. I legitimately think there is this misbelief that, Dan Campbell was just sitting there in offensive meetings, that Ben Johnson was running everything, and that in a lot of ways Dan Campbell is this big meathead, and the complexity of his offense is running the ball up the middle with David Montgomery. He is an incredibly smart football coach, and he hasn't lucked into the success that he's had over the past couple of years and going 27-7 over the course of the last 2 regular seasons. That does not happen by accident, and I think we're going to see a lot of that in 2025 is more success from the offense, but ultimately Dan Campbell have an even bigger role than what he's had over the course of the past 2 years. To me, the Detroit Lions are still one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Now, will losing Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, and even Frank Ragnow to retirement, and a couple of other guys to free agency too, have an impact on their team this year? Absolutely, yes. It would be ignorant to sit here and say that it's not. It would also be ignorant to say that, hey, they are going to repeat a 15-win season and run it back and be the number 1 seed in the conference again. Could they be the number 1 seed in the conference this year? Absolutely. They are a very, very talented team, and they still have a lot of guys in rookie contracts that they're going to need to take advantage of, with with guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, and several others still on the rookie deals before they get paid. They are in a tight window because of all of those guys getting paid and then having to replace all of those guys with the rookie contracts and having guys like Jahmyr Gibbs go for 1,900 yards on a rookie deal, but they're still a really talented team pertaining to their 2025 success, and I have no doubt the Lions, if they stay relatively healthy of course, will be a double-digit win team for the third straight year. Next up is the Chicago Bears, and I understand people getting frustrated with everyone hyping up the Bears every offseason, only for them to go 7-10 in 2023 and 5-12 in 2024, including a 10-game losing streak last year, but this video is discussing the NFC North, and there's 3 teams in this division that won 11 games last year, including 2 that won 14 or more games. Now, with Chicago specifically, I do think they are going to improve in a big way in 2025, and one of the reasons is not just due to Ben Johnson, because I think at this point the hype surrounding Ben Johnson can get a little, or a lot, out of hand, and I also think there is this belief that Ben Johnson is a miracle worker and Caleb Williams is going to go from a kind of disappointing rookie season, at least based on the expectations he had coming out of USC, to a legit top 6 or 7 quarterback in one offseason. And while in theory that could happen, 2 of the biggest reasons I'm excited for the Bears in 2025 is, of course, Ben Johnson working with Caleb, but also the offensive line being upgraded too. And we live in a world where the truth eventually comes out, and what I'm referring to here is there was reports recently that nobody was sitting down and watching film with Caleb Williams during his rookie season. Now, obviously, Caleb is a professional athlete, and I don't want to say he should be coddled his entire career, but this was a 22-year-old number 1 overall pick in his rookie season. And my point is, every young quarterback should have the opportunity to sit down and watch film with either their OC or head coach regularly. And the fact this was not a regular occurrence, to me, was kind of a slap in Caleb's face, because this is the bare minimum that should be done in terms of helping your number 1 overall pick. And again, I do think Ben Johnson getting hired to be the Bears head coach can be a little overblown at times, or a little overhyped, but even if you are out on Caleb Williams entering year 2, I would hope that you can acknowledge that him having a significantly upgraded play caller should help out Caleb Williams this year, and not to mention stability within play calling too, as Caleb is already onto his 4th play caller in his career, and we haven't even started his 2nd season yet. Now, do I think the Bears are going to go 13-4 in Ben Johnson's first year as the team's head coach? No, and I don't know if any realistic Bears fans actually do. Keyword there being realistic Bears fans. Now, do the Bears have some limitations in the run game and defensively too? Yes. They do not have a guy who can get after the quarterback as consistent as you'd like, and that's not to say Montez Sweat is a bad player, because he's not, but he is not a tier 1 pass rusher by any means either. He's not a legit franchise cornerstone, and there's nothing wrong with that because they traded a 2nd round pick for him, and not every player can be a franchise cornerstone. But for the Bears heading into 2025, they are a much improved team from where they were in 2024, and also added 2 of my favorite players in the 25 draft in tight end Colston Loveland and wide receiver Luther Burden, to an offense that already has DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. I'll be completely honest, I know I personally have hyped up the Bears in each of the last 2 off seasons, but I don't think they're going to win the division this year. But what 2025 should be for Chicago is a relatively high stepping stone for where they will be in 2026 and beyond. There's no reason this team can't win 7-9 games this year and flirt with a postseason appearance, only to build on this and win double-digit games next year and be a legit threat in January. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings, and as a lot of you guys know, I am a Minnesota Vikings fan, so I'll just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I do not think this team, as talented as they are, and as much as they improved from a 14-win team last year, is going to repeat that level of success and win 14 games again for the 2nd consecutive year. Now, I do think there is a higher chance that they win 11 or 12 games this year and win a playoff game, but I do not think they're going to win 14 games, and the playoff game and winning a playoff game also applies to the Lions as well, despite me not thinking they're going to have back-to-back 15-win seasons. The Minnesota Vikings are set up for success for not just 2025, but really the next couple of years, because now instead of having Kirk Cousins on the high quarterback contract, they drafted JJ McCarthy with the highest selection they've ever spent on a quarterback in franchise history, as he was selected at number 10 overall, and they are now in the rookie quarterback contract window and have several stars on their roster, like Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and several others to name a few. One of the biggest reasons as to why I'm high on the Vikings entering the 2025 season is because of the prioritization of the interior offensive line and also the prioritization of the backup running back this offseason. Despite the Vikings winning 14 games last year, this was not a team like the Philadelphia Eagles where they could have Saquon Barkley run behind that big offensive line and, wear you down in the fourth quarter where he's picking up 6, 7, 8, 10 yards a carry, and there's really no answer for it because your defense is not only that gassed, but also that physically less dominant compared to the Eagles' offensive line. The Vikings finished 26th in yards per carry last year, and their interior offensive line was a train wreck. They also had left tackle Christian Darrisaw go down with a torn ACL midway through the year, which also factored into the lack of run game over the course of the regular season. The Vikings' interior offensive line last year was led by Blake Brandel, Garrett Bradbury, Dalton Reisner, and Ed Ingram, and there's only one of the 4 players from that quartet that is still on the roster in Blake Brandel, and there's ultimately a reason for that. Bradbury, a former first-round pick, was released, and Ed Ingram was traded to the Texans for pennies on the dollar compared to where he was drafted, which was back in the second round back in 2022, and the key reason that he was traded for just a 6th-round pick was because he is not very good. But Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah went out and traded a 6th-round pick for Jordan Mason this offseason, and for the Vikings to effectively trade Ed Ingram to the Texans for Jordan Mason, a talented running back from the 49ers, was a tremendous move, and to be able to have both Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason run behind an offensive line that features, of course, one of the best tackle duos in football in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, and a much improved interior offensive line in Donovan Jackson, Will Fries, and Ryan Kelly is a really good recipe to set your team up for success entering the 2025 season, and ultimately in a year where you are starting not a rookie quarterback, but might as well be a rookie quarterback because he's never thrown an NFL pass in J.J. McCarthy. The Vikings also upgraded the defense in a big way this offseason as they brought in guys along the interior defensive line like Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, and if the Super Bowl proved anything, it was that you have to be able to get after the quarterback routinely, and to be able to have both of those guys along with Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel, and even 2024 first-rounder Dallas Turner as a rotational player, be able to get after the quarterback is huge for a team that has deep postseason aspirations. Unfortunately, this team was limited from a coverage standpoint last year by having Stephon Gilmore on the roster, so they didn't really run a lot of cover 1, and their cover 1 percentage was significantly lower than the rest of the NFL, but now they will have more help in the secondary as they brought in Isaiah Rodgers in free agency, they brought back Byron Murphy, and will also be getting 2023 third-round corner Mekhi Blackman back from injury, who unfortunately tore his ACL before the 2024 season started. This team is significantly improved, coming off of a 14-win season, and like we mentioned in the intro for the Vikings segment, I don't think they're going to have back-to-back 14-win seasons, but I do think they are going to be a very formidable opponent for not just this year, but ultimately the next couple of years as they are in the quarterback contract window with J.J. McCarthy. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel as we are closing in at 200,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for the support. Please check out Arena Club as well, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.